So good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone, wherever you are joining us. And today we have a very interesting webinar devoted to the innovations in hydrogen and how to finance them. We have an excellent speakers with us, also joining us from all over the world. And as you can see, it's almost a women-led panel. We have only one brave gentleman joining us today. And today we will discuss the hydrogen innovation ecosystem and how to finance it and which challenges are there. And just a little bit introduction also how we will do it today. The session will last about 60 minutes. We will start with the opening remarks, followed by the presentation about 15 minutes. And then we will have a panel discussion for 35 minutes. And then at the end, if we have some time left, of course, we will invite you to ask the panelists some questions. And yes, just a short agenda of today. So we will have the following topics addressed. It will be the current state of hydrogen innovations in the world, the role of development finance institutions in mobilizing private investments, innovative business and finance models, then balancing innovation caused by private sector, by companies, and then most promising hydrogen technologies. So we will start now with opening remarks. I am happy to invite Petra Schwager from UNIDO. She's the Chief of Climate Technology and Partnerships Division, and she also established and leads the Global Program for Hydrogen Industry of UNIDO. Petra, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria, and thank you to everybody who joins today. It's a big pleasure to be here. Thank you for all the speakers, but also for the ones that are listening in. A warm welcome from Vienna. Yeah, innovation. Innovation is becoming more and more crucial, especially as many of you that are following the hydrogen discussion saying, well, the price is still too high, and where's the demand? So through innovation, we all hope that the costs will go down and that it will also drive more demand and more uptake. So it's more, for me personally, I believe it's one of the most important elements that we should work on in today's hydrogen discussions and to eventually reach a global hydrogen economy. So discussing today the challenges of funding this innovation and thereby bridging the gap between project development, innovation and finance is extremely important. And I would like to thank all of you that are coming into this discussion. And I also hope that we have a lot of questions on how to move forward and bringing forward new technologies that are just sitting with less energy intensive. For example, electrolyzers. We could bring down the costs immediately. Nowadays, 70% are the energy supply for hydrogen. So if these technologies can be brought forward, if also new technologies like waste to hydrogen, if you can advance them more. So we have to be open. We have to be really open to all the innovations and the new technologies. And I hope we get the funding for it. So thank you very much looking forward to discussion. And back to you, Maria.
Thank you, Petra. Thank you very much. And before I move to another speaker, I would like to answer maybe to one of the questions you may have already. So if you get the webinar records after this webinar, yes, you will get. We will upload this webinar. We are currently recording the webinar. We will upload it to our website. I will put then in the chat the site address where you can find then the records. We will also share the presentation slides, which you will see later. And answering your question, I believe we cannot share the attendees list with you. I think because it's of the privacy reasons. Thank you very much. Also, once a little request to all of you. It's very nice that you are active and writing in the chat, but please do it between the speakers, between the interventions, because when you write a lot, it might disturb the speakers. Thank you so much. So I would like now to introduce another speaker. She is my colleague Pankuri Podar, and she is a clean hydrogen innovation expert, and she represents the Accelerate to Demonstrate Facility initiative of UNIDO, and she will share with you the presentation about the hydrogen innovations around the world, and also results and some, yes, outcomes of the assessment. Thank you very much. And Pankuri, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, based on wherever you are. Please allow me a second to share my screen. And given that time is of the essence, please excuse me. I will really be, I will try to be as comprehensive as possible, and just letting everyone know that the findings of this assessment is it's already public, and Maria will be sharing the presentation with you with the QR code, which you can scan and get the details of this market assessment which was conducted. So I'm just gonna, I'm just going to give you a brief overview about the A to D facility and what exactly we do, followed by how this market assessment really came into being, and then the findings, the key findings. So the Accelerate to Demonstrate facility aims to accelerate the commercialization of innovative clean energy solutions in developing countries by supporting catalytic and scalable demonstration projects. We focus on four main thematic areas: clean hydrogen, critical minerals, smart energy, and industrial decarbonization. So at the A to D facility, we provide grant funding, which can be used towards the construction, demonstration, and deployment of hydrogen technologies in developing countries. And the other part and the other sort of projects that we can support are the knowledge creation projects, which is when we conducted this global market assessment, which will take us into the innovation landscape in the developing countries, followed by a deeper dive into a few selected countries which were identified to have a lot of innovation potential. Currently, we are in the process of evaluating a second call for proposals. We have our first hydrogen project, which is the Dauris Green Hydrogen Village project in Namibia, and we will be announcing the second pipeline at COP30 in Brazil next month. Okay, so for this market assessment, we started at a macro level, and then we further went down to a micro level. We started with 141 developing countries on the ODA, on the DAC list of the ODA eligible countries. And some of the criteria which was used to analyze these 141 countries were international partnerships, financing mechanisms, projects and innovation, the existence of hydrogen roadmaps, and the existence of hydrogen association. These 5 criteria basically speak to something a lot deeper, which reflects the existence of a willingness to promote hydrogen and to look at hydrogen as a clean energy technology, which can help us decarbonize our energy mix and take us to a net zero future. So we'll first talk about the landscape of technologies. Based on the findings, so there were around 110 hydrogen projects which were mapped in the TRL 6 to 9. So TRL 6 to 9 are probably the late stage pilot demonstration projects which we would want to say are the kind of projects that the A2D facility can support. And these were identified in 35 developing countries. Out of these 110 projects, around 41% of the projects were identified to focus on hydrogen production. Followed by 23% of the projects which were focusing more on mobility, and about less than 5% projects were focusing on the hydrogen use in cement, iron, and the steel industry. So our hydrogen downstream was identified as one of the areas with the least amount of projects. And in the geographical distribution, the LAC region hosted around 36% of the projects, followed by Asia with 29% projects, and Africa with 25% projects. And the most interesting part is all three regions, the focus area was clean hydrogen technology, which means there's a lot of focus on the upstream of hydrogen, but the midstream and the downstream still needs a bit more focus. Now on clean hydrogen, the landscape of innovators. Of course, more than 200 innovators were identified in developing countries. Most of them were universities and research institutions concentrated in Asia, and that kind of makes sense as well, given that it is the universities and research institutions where you have access to a lot of technical knowledge and labs, which is basically the breeding ground for a lot of innovation. However, there was also what we noticed is as we progressed along the TRL chain, the technology readiness level chain, the role of other innovators, such as off-takers, startups, pure hydrogen players, or the energy sector, started becoming more and more important. So it started with research and education institution, but the role of other stakeholders, other innovators, such as the off-takers, kept on increasing as the technologies progressed and matured further. China and India were noted to have a strong leadership in innovation, followed by the LAC region. Now, these innovators, there were a lot of primary and secondary data collected through this entire market assessment. And the biggest barrier that was identified by these innovators was the financial support. The lack of, and given that this is in the developing, the developing countries, they come with a lot of other challenges of its own, along with, the credit risk rating, currency fluctuation, and a lot of other financial concern, because of which there were a lot of them which were extremely concerned about the lack of financial support being as one of the most important reasons why they were not able to progress ahead. Along with that, there was also a link identified between an absence of an off-taker, which was basically identified on the fourth as the top 5 barriers. So the absence of taker sort of directly links to the financial support that the projects were known to have, because an existence of an off-taker automatically talks about a project being bankable and makes it a lot more reliable and credit-worthy. So so the absence of an off-taker, and this is exactly why with what H2 Global is doing, and we have Susana from H2 Global present on the call, so it'll be interesting to hear from her. So absence of off-taker directly links into the financial support which is available for these projects. Along with that, you also had the existence of national and regional policy, the regulatory framework, and the lack of infrastructure, which was noted as some of the predominant challenges as well. In terms of the stakeholder now, this is a high-level picture about which are the different stakeholders that are there in the entire value chain, and how their role and the interaction changes as we progress along the TRLs, TRL 1 to 9. So I'm going to start with the TRL 1 to 4, which is basically where, as I mentioned previously, you have more on the international entities, the academia and the government entities. They play more of an important role initially. Very important to understand the country-specific needs, opportunities, and challenges. And based on the technology and the international trends and the local condition, It is also possible that if the local government is able to enhance and support the budding ecosystem, then we have international entities that can provide funding. For example, World Bank has provided a 3 billion policy-linked incentive to India at the back of a lot of the local hydrogen ecosystem. And of course, academia, you have, as I mentioned in the initial TRL level, access to the specialized knowledge, international links, and the test benches, the laboratory access does allow for a lot of innovation to bud and stem from that stakeholder. And going further on from TRL 4 to 9, we have the academia interacting more with the innovators. The innovators can, of course, be of different nature. They can be purely off-takers, or they can be purely hydrogen players, or they can be energy sector players. And then you have off-takers, you have hydrogen association. What is most important is to understand that you have to allow for interaction between all these stakeholders in order to address and bridge the gap that exists in the local skills and knowledge. And based on this interaction, we have to secure a solid offtake agreement between the producers and the suppliers, so that the projects can be a lot more bankable, and we can see a lot more projects hitting FID, and then eventually, really scaling up, which is what we want to see, securing commercial success from projects. Okay, so now we have a bit more on the national initiatives, like a lot of, this is just an example, and I'm going really quick, again, repeating myself. We have everything available in a lot more detail, and it can be shared with you. We have developing countries which introduce a lot of policy initiatives and regulatory framework to advance the clean hydrogen ecosystem locally and even regionally. Brazil, Egypt, Morocco, India are some of the more prominent ones. And again, emphasizing through this, India was able to unlock with World Bank a policy link incentive. And so these are really things which are being looked at, and it's a great way to unleash the hydrogen potential in a lot of these countries. And some of the different schemes that these countries are using are VAT exemptions, tax credits, cash incentives, certification schemes, and using laws for clean hydrogen usage. Of course, you have certification scheme, and the most prominent one being the Certi HILAC, which is targeted at 12 lakh countries. Okay, another very important part that is not spoken about enough is on international cooperation, collaboration, and regional and international initiatives, which is very important for knowledge sharing and facilitating shared transportation, storage, and technology. We need to realize that hydrogen is still, pre-commercial. So we need a lot of the companies, a lot of projects we need regional collaboration and cooperation, not the traditional competition, in order to ensure that there is significant progress that we can make towards helping hydrogen reach full potential and commercialization. So some of the regional initiatives you have in the LAC region is the LAC Clean Hydrogen Association, or the H2 LAC, or the Certi HILAC. In Africa, we have certain other regional initiatives, such as the Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance and the Africa Hydrogen Partnership. And in Asia, we have Asia Pacific Green Hydrogen Alliance. So these regional initiatives basically become platform for sharing expert knowledge and exchanging best practices and promoting capacity building. And apart from helping countries which are already established, it also aims to help countries which want to kickstart their journey in the clean hydrogen space. And of course, very important is that through interaction and by enhancing regional potential, we lead to reducing costs. By sharing investments and infrastructure, because to think about it, it is almost ridiculous to expect every project to have independent infrastructure of its own, especially if they're located in the vicinity. So we have to look at a cluster and a hub initiative wherein a multiple project can rely on shared infrastructure, which can help us overcome a lot of the cost barriers. So there were certain countries which were identified as having gained the most attention in the hydrogen space. Brazil, China, India, Morocco, and South Africa were identified as some of the most prominent ones. And most of these incentives were concentrated and linked to pre-feasibility study, supporting development of regulatory frameworks, technical and financial assistance, and global standards. Not focused on developing countries. The most important gap which the A2D facility also aims to cover was the fact that we provide funding to hydrogen projects which can go towards supporting them in their capital expenditure and operating expenditure. So we need a lot more funding, a lot more services, a lot more support when it comes to helping these projects construct their respective construct their plants, demonstration plants, and demonstrate their technology. Now we're going towards the regional analysis. I'll break it down. Maria, I hope I'm on time, so please let me know.
You have 1 minute, please.
Okay, it's not bad. So for Latin America and Caribbean, there were 41 demonstration projects. There were 4 hubs identified. Most of the barriers that were looked at was lack of regulatory framework, lack of expertise, and limitation in enabling infrastructure for hydrogen or the derivatives, and resistance from the local community. It's very important to get the local community involved because they are going to be a part of the local ecosystem. And of course, they have a lot. The LAC region has a lot of renewable energy, which makes it a super lucrative area to look at for hydrogen. Asia, we have a cluster. Look, Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia. They're part of the hub, and they're looking at exporting hydrogen to the Far East, to Northeast Asian countries such as Japan and Korea. And you have regulatory diversity and varying levels of infrastructure development. There are regional differences regarding access to technology, which is a big barrier, and there's also high dependence on fossil fuel. However, you have energy storage, clean hydrogen production, and mobility projects, which are found in all stages in this region, which makes us also very interested in seeing how Asia develops. Last but not the least, we have Africa. This is where we have supported our first project, Namibia. There were 3 potential hubs identified. Two were in North Africa. One is in the South African region in Namibia. Africa, of course, has a lot of other energy challenges in terms of high dependence on fossil fuel. Less than 25% of the population have access to energy, limited access to technology, financial resources. However, we cannot overlook the opportunities that come for clean hydrogen production and mobility, and hydrogen-based microgrids can provide an amazing solution to clean energy access to the rural areas and the isolated areas in Africa. So last but not the least, to sum it up, the key takeaways are the private sector involvement is key. Without the private sector, we cannot reach TRL 10. So we need all different stakeholders to interact, come together. We need a lot of collaboration between the public sector and the private sector. And of course, in public sector, we cover international organizations such as UNIDO as well. It's very important to fostering a healthy innovation ecosystem is crucial. Constant adaptation and research within hydrogen is needed. And most projects concentrate on hydrogen production as of now. However, we need a lot more attention on other parts of the value chain, such as the end user application. We need focus on hydrogen storage, transportation, and hydrogen demand, because when we have demand, when we have off-takers, then we know the project becomes bankable and we can get a lot more financial support for those projects. And we need to strengthen regional cooperation in LAC, Africa, Asia. These are the main developing country hubs. So we need them so that we can, based on the limitation and strength of each region, we can make sure that these projects can really flourish. And So with this, I will hand over the floor to Maria. I hope I did not exceed by too much. And again, the findings from this market assessment are already made public. They are on our website, and they will also be circulated to you via Maria. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you found the presentation useful. Maria, over
Thank
to
you,
you.
Pankuri. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. And I know how difficult it is to make it short because you have a lot of information to share, and we will be happy to share these slides, but also the assessment with the audience after the webinar. You can see in the chat the web address. There we will upload the records of this webinar, so you could consult this website in a couple of days and you will find the resources there. And now I'm happy to move further with a panel discussion. I would love to introduce our panelists, and so I will start with Silvia Carolina Lopez Rocha. She is consultant in energy extractives from the World Bank. Then we also have Susana Moreira, Executive Director of H2 Global Foundation. Then we also have Anastasios Thomadakis, Energy Market Modeling Specialist from Mitsubishi Heavy Industry, and Si Chen, Director from the International Technology Cooperation Department of International Hydrogen Energy Center in China. And this panel will be moderated by my dear colleague, Smita Fokir. Smita, I'm happy to hand over to you. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. And thank you to our panelists. Pankuri mentioned the strong leadership from China and India in the presentation. And it's interesting to also note that those two countries are the two developing countries with the most committed investment also in hydrogen in general. So it does look that innovation and investment commitment goes hand in hand. So having said that, we do know that there is a big innovation gap between developed countries and developing countries. And we are lucky today to have Carolina from the World Bank. And I would like to ask you, Carolina, how can development finance institutions like the World Bank, how can they play a role, a more proactive role in attractive private financing, and how can this scale hydrogen innovation globally? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Smita, and thank you to all the audience that are here. It's a pleasure to be here to share the perspective from the World Bank. I would like to share with you what we have been seeing from the more than 30 developing countries around the world where we are working. And we see that many of these projects are facing challenges to achieve final investment decision and secure the financing because they do not find an offtake. And the reason why they are not finding off-takers is because there's still a premium between gray and renewable or green hydrogen, and that there is a cost gap that needs to be addressed. What we are seeing today is very much aligned with what Petra mentioned about innovation. Renewable hydrogen costs can really be reduced through two ways of innovation. First, the technology innovation, and second, to innovative financing. And these are the two components I want to focus on today. Starting with the technology innovation, we are currently finalizing a report on electrolyzers. And we are seeing that if we map the levelized cost of hydrogen, and what is really prevalent there is that the cost of electricity plays almost 70% of the final LCOH. So any strategy that reduces electricity cost is highly innovative. And we are seeing, for example, that batteries are playing a critical role here. We just came back from Namibia and we saw that the low cost of batteries are really a game changer that will facilitate the deployment, for example, of alkaline in desert countries with good photovoltaic. And just a simple comparison that I would like to share is that if you add 5 hours or 5 kilowatt hours of battery at an average cost of $65 per kilowatt hour with a competitive priced alkaline, you can have around 17 operating hours of these projects. So that makes it very special and new because we were not counting with these competitive prices of batteries a decade ago, but now we see the prices getting much more competitive, and that makes that the technology such as alkaline can be paired with the batteries and provide an innovative solution for the high cost of renewables. The other part that we saw and that is reflected in the report is that whenever we discuss the CAPEX, we see normally that 1/3 of the CAPEX is the stack, the price of the stack of the electrolyzer, but also 1/3 of that is normally in developing countries, the EPC cost, and 1/3 could also go on the building and other civil works. And it's fantastic to see that in countries such as, for example, Colombia, what the innovation is leading these project developers is that they are not hiring external EPC companies, but they are doing their own engineering and construction with very skilled engineers that are local. So that has a double effect that they also have very good workforce and also generate jobs. So that innovation of having this talented workforce locally can also reduce the cost and therefore generate some further innovation. And that is the first part on the technology innovation, but we also see that the innovation can go on the financing. So the typical plain vanilla project financing sometimes is not what we are seeing in these projects. And here I have several examples. As you may know, in Paraguay, there is a project that has achieved a final investment decision and that the IFC is supporting. So what we see in this project is that, for example, the company had the innovative solution of raising the capital, the equity in the stock exchange market. So they are using that for development expenditures. Another innovation that we are seeing in the ways of providing some financing is in Chile, where for the first time the World Bank provided a technology risk mechanism. So normally development banks do not take the technology risk because that normally is covered by the commercial counterparts. But in Chile, whenever we were discussing with the developers and also with the financiers, they were telling us, you know, we don't feel comfortable to invest because we do not know how these 100 megawatt projects will be performing. And that, of course, will impact on the repayment of the debt or of the capital. So what we did as the World Bank is that we created a mechanism that in case the KPIs of the technology are not met, we will bring the money and we will be the ones taking over or underwriting the risk of the electrolyzer performance. Another also innovative form to finance is what we are now working in collaboration with the Climate Investment Fund in Namibia, and that is to create a fund that will have a better credit rating than the rating per se of the country, so that the investors can feel confident, put their money, and also have a lower cost of capital. So, for example, Namibia has a rating of BB-, and with the support of this concessional financing from the World Bank, IFC, and AFDB with Climate Investment Fund, we aim that could really enhance the financing of these projects, passing, for example, from a BB- from a sovereign rating to the fund of a BBB. So that will really decrease the cost of financing because the risk perceived for these projects will be substantially lower. And I want to echo on what Pankuri said, also on the innovation and collaboration. And here I have the pleasure of sharing the screen today with Susana from H2 Global, which we have a collaborative platform that is the 10 Gigawatt Lighthouse Initiative, where we have 15 development finance institutions. And all of us were working together to try to pool financial means, but also identify what are the financing instruments that are more relevant for each project. Because each of us can provide something different, and it is critical to collaborate so that among all the MDBs and DFIs can really move forward with these projects and help them achieve final investment decision. And another initiative that we are working is with the Berina Union, which is an association of export credit agencies and insurances, on how we can really provide some instruments to mitigate the risk perceived, and in that objective also lower the cost of capital. So we see that emerging markets and developing countries face higher cost of capital than OECD countries. So trying to find some innovative mechanisms such as first loss guarantees, credit risk enhancement, or for example, risk mitigation against expropriation is something that we are working, and we see as very innovative and way forward to support the projects that achieve FID. So I would like just to wrap up, Smita, saying that these are the innovation on the technology and the innovation on the financing is how we're working at the World Bank with other development finance institutions
Thank
to
you
support
very
the
much.
hydrogen projects.
Thank you very much, Carolina. You open up the floor for the next speaker very well, because we know technology goes beyond innovation. We can also speak about, you've spoken about innovative financing. We can speak about innovative business models as well. So we have Susana Moreira with us from H2 Global, H2 Global has come up with some innovative market-oriented instruments. Can you tell us a bit more about the H2 Global mechanism and how it plays the role of a market maker and how it also accelerates innovation? I would like to also ask all the remaining speakers to try and stick to the 7 minutes speaking time, please. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Smita, and thanks everyone for the invitation. It's a pleasure to meet you virtually wherever you are in the world. As Carolina mentioned and others, I'm representing H2 Global. H2 Global emerged about 4 years ago, and it was designed to help tackle the market failures that are impeding the emergence of markets for clean fuels. And it does that by the introduction of this double auction mechanism, which I will briefly explain, but it's an instrument that covers the price gap between supply and demand. It also results in bankable long-term offtake contracts, which then result in financial investment decisions and the availability of fuel to the market, and with that, the potential for scalability and lower costs in the future. So the H2 Global mechanism, really quickly, in view of our time constraints, has a few key elements. The first element is that it has 2 auctions, as the name indicates. The first auction is a supply auction, where an intermediary, which can be a HINCO, goes to the market and conducts an auction for a certain amount of funds that are made available, and the companies or projects compete to secure that contract that's being offered by this intermediary, and the company or project that offers basically the most product for the amounts available is the one that's going to win the contract. And they enter directly a contract with the intermediary, which is their off-taker. So with that, a lot of these issues that were emerging also in the analysis that was introduced at the beginning of the session are resolved. There is an off-taker, there is clarity on the contract duration, and there's also a certain amount that is going to be paid to this project. And that is an essential element for the projects to go to the banks and secure the financing that they need to help them reach FID. So that's the first phase of the issue mechanism. And the second phase, it's called demand side auction. And what it is the intermediary that has acquired this product goes to the market and says, well, I have this product arriving in about a year. Who amongst the off-takers is interested and willing to pay for this product? And those that are willing to pay the most are the ones that are going to win the product. And as we all know, right now, there's going to be an expected gap between how much companies are willing to pay for the product and how much it initially cost the intermediary to purchase these products. And so that gap is covered by funds that are coming from public coffers. And so far, H2 Global has been able to mobilize around 6 billion euros from 4 governments, from the German government, first and foremost. It's our first and largest supporter, but also from the Netherlands, from Australia, and from Canada. And we are talking very actively with a few more governments that are willing to step up and get the funds to help address this gap that exists and get these transactions going. So in really just in a few words, what is the impact of the H2 Global approach? Well, what do we do is for producers, we are providing long-term revenue certainty and help them get to FID. For fund providers, we are minimizing the funding needs because they will only have to cover the actual gap that exists. Unlike, for example, a contract for difference where there is a certain amount that is fixed over a period of time. In this case, since we are going to the market every year to sell the product, there is an expectation, particularly in rich contexts, that the willingness to pay will get higher, and hence the difference will be smaller, allowing governments to pocket some funds. So we are ensuring that they will get the biggest bang for their buck. And for off-takers, we are managing price risk, aiding in price discovery, and all of that will help to get to a liquid market. So how does this all tie about with technology and innovation? There are various ways. One, of course, is that we are looking in the design of the auction, what certain criteria are we looking for to, let's say, focus on. So certain governments want to ensure that they have a diversity of suppliers. So that means that they're looking at different regions where they want the product to come from. But they could also considerably think, okay, I want to support certain technologies. So right now, we don't have that as part of any of our auctions. That is not one of the, let's say, various criteria that are in the auction design, but you could say that we want certain technologies that we give preference to. So that would be a direct link to the H2 Global financial approach and an innovative way, and promoting or supporting certain technologies. You can also consider eligible bidders. So you may want to give preference to certain regions or certain types of companies that you want to get your products for. So that could also be something that the auctions can contemplate. It's very important, of course, that, as you add more criteria or more objectives to the auctions that you are designing, the more difficult they become because it's harder to address all these different elements. So it's advisable to pick 1 or 3 different objectives and design the auctions accordingly so that you maximize the impact of the auctions. I also want to say, in terms of the technology aspect, and another way that this approach is directly involved with that is through the diligence efforts that are done by the intermediary as they select the projects. When the intermediary is looking at the projects that are bidding for the production, they will look at the project as a whole and also look at the technology solutions that are being adopted to make sure that the project has really the possibility that it will be successful and it will deliver. So that process of actually going through the projects and making that technological analysis to ensure technical viability is also a way to contribute to supporting certain technologies or certain approaches, because we're making sure that from that aspect the projects make sense. So I'm looking at the time. I think I'm at my time, but I wanted to leave you with these 2 messages, which is it is critical to create markets. There is currently a cost gap, and H2Global mechanism is one of the ways that can address that, and in the process also support objectives like supporting certain technologies and or making sure that the projects that win have technological viability. So I'll stay with that. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Susana. Well, we've heard several times that electrolytic hydrogen is expensive. There is a cost gap between that and unabated hydrogen. So, in addition to that, in order to get that cost gap down and get the technology working, we need to have more investment in R&D, and that does not come cheap. So I'm happy that we have a private sector today, the Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, that is engaging in this kind of innovation. And I would like to ask you, Anastasios, what are the promising avenues that are available to companies like Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, and how do you balance priorities between incremental innovation to improve efficiency and reduce cost on the one hand, and on the other hand, how do you there's that urgency to scale up demonstration project to prove that it makes sense in real world, it's viable. How do we accelerate market adoption like this? So how do you balance these 2 priorities?
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone from my side as well, and thank you very much for the invitation. So I would like to start off by saying that we have a holistic approach on hydrogen, and we see hydrogen not only as a fuel, but also as the cornerstone of the energy transition. Today, the hydrogen sector is undergoing what we at MHI call a healthy recalibration as we move from hype and speculative, let's say, gigawatt scale vision to hard numbers and commercially grounded projects. Now, the technology is there, and I will get to that in a second, explaining what is our part in technology innovation. But what we need now is market design and demand creation to turn this potential into real life deployment. And by that, I mean demand side initiatives, as I think they were also mentioned before, like green premium, CFDs, and targeted procurement policies, and also financing mechanisms. Those are essentials to stimulate the real demand for the hard to abate industries. I'm talking about green steel, green cement, also SAF, in order to enable the first large, let's say, scale projects to reach reality. To come back to the question, at MHI, we focus on both incremental improvements and large-scale demonstration projects because both are essential to accelerate adoption and to create real-world impact. Now, our technologies span the entire value chain. We go from production and storage up to transport and utilization. As this provides us a unique perspective on both the technological and financial pathways required to make hydrogen commercial available. And as you said, Mira, engaging in innovation and R&D does not come cheap. So we approach this challenge in two ways. We advance breakthrough hydrogen technologies that are already deployable today. And we also co-develop hydrogen projects and assist in bringing them to life. So back to the technological innovation part. At MHI, we have our hydrogen-ready gas turbines, which can already co-fire 30% hydrogen and provide power, of course, the rest being natural gas, with a clear roadmap to reach 100% hydrogen firing by the mid-2030s. In Takasago, Japan, we have our hydrogen park, which is the world's first full-scale hydrogen turbine testing facility, actually a living laboratory for the future of power generation with combined cycle gas turbines fueled by hydrogen and ammonia. Now, the one very good use case of the hydrogen gas turbines, especially in the power sector, is to provide grid balancing, as this allows us to have hydrogen being more of a seasonal storage, and ammonia, of course, as seasonal storage options, storing hydrogen when renewables are abundant, and converting it back to electricity when it is needed. And of course, since we are also in an age where we have fast-growing energy demand from the digital infrastructure, namely data centers, this can also be a very good use case to power these data centers with low carbon baseload power. Now, besides the gas turbines, we are also scaling high capacity electrolyzers through our partnerships. And over there, we focus, of course, on efficiency, modularity, to enable those systems to grow along with market demand, which, as I said, is very, very important and the key to accelerate the hydrogen economy and to build the ecosystem. Besides our park in Takasago, we also have the Advanced Clean Energy Storage System, namely ACES in Utah, where we are supplying hydrogen-ready turbines for one of the world's largest renewable hydrogen hubs, integrating production, storage in the form of caverns, and dispatchable clean power. Now, alongside hydrogen, we are also working on SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel. That represents another critical pillar of our decarbonization strategy, especially for sectors that are hard to electrify, like the aviation. And we aim in general to develop solutions that convert renewable hydrogen and capture CO2 into, for example, synthetic fuels that are compatible, of course, with existing infrastructure. Now, technology alone will not be enough. As to move projects forward, we must make also hydrogen projects financially bankable, the production of hydrogen bankable. And our key metric here in developing the hydrogen projects effectively will be the optimization of the levelized cost of hydrogen, the LCOH. And when we are trying to lower this will be essential to improve the competitiveness of the projects and secure financing in order to reach the desired FID, which is the end goal, let's say, of every hydrogen project. And MHI, every aspect of our technical and financial analysis going into the development of such project is geared towards that goal, to ensure that its configuration that we are trying to develop delivers hydrogen at the lowest sustainable cost, while at the same time always maintaining reliability and scalability. In doing so, we use energy and financial modeling in order to design the optimal project configurations and simulate the entire energy system across its lifetime over multiple also time horizons, from hourly dispatch up to long-term investment planning. And by doing so, we design projects that are robust and are also resilient across multiple markets and conditions. We believe that this type of modeling also will build trust with partners, and by quantifying the risks and also by designing an optimal plant, we are able to move projects for engineering concepts into investable assets. Now, one last thing, the last, let's say, point that I would like to make is about policy. Now, policy and financial mechanisms, they must shift towards creating predictable and bankable demand. This is our priority, of course, rather than only subsidizing supply. So once predictable demand for hydrogen and other RFNBO products is established, then financing mechanisms can really amplify and boost the momentum of hydrogen. Now, Europe is, of course, leading the way here, as we already have some advanced examples of how policy and funding frameworks can actually help in this deployment. We have, of course, the Renewable Energy Directive, which requires hydrogen use in industries like for example, in industry and transport. We have the EU, the ETS system, which will increase the price of carbon, thus making hydrogen more competitive. And on financing, we also have some very powerful instruments. Namely, I'm talking about the EU Innovation Fund, already backing some large-scale renewable hydrogen projects. We have the Hydrogen Bank, of course, auction, and we also have the important projects of common European interest, the ETCEIs, that are mobilizing also billions across borders, and the investment bank is also another, let's say, key pillar into achieving financing for those projects. Besides that, of course, when we're talking about separate countries, each country has also the national schemes. For example, Germany is H2 Global, France, Spain, and Netherlands, they have deployed, let's say, multi-billion hydrogen strategies, and this reinforces actually Europe's momentum moving forward. We already, as I think it was also mentioned, see CFD type of models in Germany's H2 Global pilot auctions. We see also designed to close price gaps between renewable and fossil-based hydrogen. And by doing so and hopefully guaranteeing hydrogen producers a fixed price, we are able to enable faster FID. So in short, policy and financial mechanisms must work together. And to conclude, when we're talking about how we view the balancing, let's say, between incremental innovation and demonstration, so large-scale projects, should we focus on one or the other? The truth is that both are essential as they reinforce one another. So when we're talking incremental innovation, we're talking steadily improving efficiency, modularity, lowering capex, improving the design, reducing storage costs. And when we're talking about large demonstration projects, as I said, we already have shown how large-scale projects like our hydrogen park in Takasago or our ACES project, they are proof of real-world viability. So we see hydrogen maturing from hype to actually numbers, and we see that we have to create market, we have to stimulate demand, and we have to deploy financing that bridges the costs and builds confidence. And in doing so, we believe that we can transform, let's say, hydrogen into a global economy, and we are currently committed into this path. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anastasios. Our last but not least speaker, Sichen, from the International Hydrogen Energy Center in Beijing. Very quickly, if you could tell us, according to your perception, what are the most promising hydrogen innovation that are currently in the pipeline, and how can institutions such as the International Hydrogen Energy Center better engage with financiers to scale up these early stage hydrogen technologies? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Smita, and thanks UNIDO for organizing this event. Because I think I don't have lots of time, so I will first of all introduce IHAC briefly. The International Hydrogen Energy Center is a project supported by the UNIDO and the Chinese government as a global innovation exchange and incubation platform in the hydrogen sector. So you can see we get close to some cutting-edge technologies. So we truly believe that innovation is a key to driving the hydrogen industry forward. So on one hand, new technologies will help bring down the cost of producing and using hydrogen. On the other hand, new technology will expand the scenarios where and how hydrogen can be used. So at the International Hydrogen Energy Center, we act as an incubator for the innovative ideas. But we don't have huge funding, so we focus on the early stage technologies, which actually do not need a large amount of money. And we use proof of concept funding to help the promising technologies grow. For example, the anion exchange membrane electrolyzers that don't rely on the expensive material like iridium or palladium can make hydrogen cheaper and more efficient at using renewable electricity, and like seawater electrolysis, which let us use hydrogen without relying on the large amounts of purified water, which have a big advantages in the places where fresh water is limited. So, for example, in the Mid-East, and also we are seeing great process on the material side, things like the composite membranes and the electro-deposited catalytic electrodes can lead to a longer service life and a higher efficiency for the electrolyzer, which can also help bring down the cost of the green hydrogen. So on the application side, there are also some promising technologies like the solid oxide fuel cells, which can be operated under the high temperature and can become more efficient than the traditional one, and can also work with lower purity hydrogen, which makes the electricity generated from the hydrogen can be cheaper. Another one is the liquid hydrogen vehicles, which take advantages of the hydrogen's high energy density, so they can run more efficiently. And also, we also support techniques, which is ammonia co-firing, which is not only help the coal plants cut emissions, but also it can open up new ways to use hydrogen via ammonia, because ammonia is also known as the hydrogen carrier. So when we talk about how IHAC be better engaged with a financier to scale up these technologies, I think there is a concept in the technology transfer called the Valley of Death. It refers to a stage where early research works perfectly in the lab, but struggle to make it to the market. So the early stage investor often see high uncertainty and risk. So it's hard for these technologies to get the support they need, to get the money they need. At IHAC, we use the proof of concept funding to bridge this gap. So we raise the funding from government, from the public, to turn the promising research into the investable innovation companies, which with clear technical, economic, and social value. So once the technology crosses the valley of death, we usually said, and finds a real world application and get support from the private and the social capital, it can move out of the lab and then scale up quickly under a company structure. So as a platform, I see we mainly place two key roles. The first one is we connect innovative companies with the financiers. We're helping them get funding at different stages. And the second, we actively promote collaboration between government and the financial institutions, supporting small scales and large scale demonstration of new technologies, which can help accelerate the adoptions and drive the future cost reductions of the new technologies. And also, we also have some, for the countries that don't have much government support or strong innovation, we also have some suggestions for them, because first, I think they should focus on the hydrogen application that actually make economic sense, rather than trying to expand everywhere at once. And also, this country should look closely at their own renewable resources and where hydrogen can really be used. And second, I think with limited money, so they should use the limited public fund to attract outside investment, like set up some small demonstration with a small amount of government money, and then they they bring in the development banks, regional funds, or some joint ventures and private investors with the government to provide the guarantees and reduce the risk of the small demonstration plant. And third, I think they could set up some safety standards, training programs, and some like clear permitting process. And so this will lower the barriers and the risks for investors, and also can help attract more international capital. So the International Hydrogen Energy Center can help by bringing in the innovative hydrogen technologies, supporting these regions in lobbying for international funding, and providing some like practical training or skills development for the hydrogen workforces. So that's our works to share. Thanks, Smita.
Thank you, Sichen. I am aware that we are already over time, so I suggest that I do a very quick recap of the discussion we've had today. And so what we've heard is that the hydrogen industry is going through a healthy recalibration of going from hype to real, what can be done, what can be achieved. And for that, we need to engage both in incremental innovation and demonstration projects. So, and also that the green premium, the cost gap is very much still present and will be hard to move for hydrogen. So we've been hearing from H2 Global and the World Bank about technological innovation, financial innovation financing, innovative financing, and new innovative business models that can help to achieve this. Then we had some recommendations from IHEC on for countries with limited innovation funds. The priority is to push for hydrogen application, reevaluate where renewable energy resources need to be deployed, and implement small demonstration projects with blended funds from government, private sector, and foreign investment. So I think we've had a very rich discussion. Thank you very much to everyone on the panel for your contribution. And I hand the floor over to Moreira. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Smita. Thank you, dear speakers, dear panelists. Yes, indeed, very rich discussion. Unfortunately, we are over time, but thanks to all that you are still with us, that in spite of the time, unfortunately we don't have now time left for your questions, but I would love to thank all the people who commented, who put the questions in the chat, especially Roxana, Juan Pablo, Luke, Attila, and Masoud. Thank you very much. And I believe the best solution would be to organize another session where we could address more questions and other aspects of this interesting and important topic. And we will try to do it. We will aim. Thank you very much to our speakers. And as said before, we will share the records with our participants, that PowerPoint presentation, all sources that were discussed today. And please consult our website. You can find in the chat hydrogen.unido.org. And I also invite you to join our membership list. You can sign in on our website so you will not miss our further webinars with our excellent speakers. Thank you very much and wish you a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Moreira.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.